So it is a true privilege to have with us people that actually represent the payers. In fact, we have listened to incredible talks yesterday and today about innovative technologies, very expensive ones, unproven ones. We saw Bob Kiai present a super good robotic intervention today. I'm convinced that this is not for free. It costs a lot of money, I'm convinced. We have seen impellas used. We have seen left ventricular assist devices used. We have seen stents. We have seen IVUS, FFRs. All of these technologies are costly. And we cannot think that clinicians can make the decisions on themselves. We cannot think that governments can actually pay everything. So I have asked Michèle de Guise from INES, and I've asked Immaculate Nivis to come from OTAC, Ontario body that actually assesses new technologies, and INES is doing the same thing in Quebec, to tell us a little bit what the process is, what it looks like, what are the variables we use to evaluate these technologies, and what the recommendations to the government may look like once this is done. So objective evidence, I suppose, but without further delay, I will ask Michèle de Guise to come up. And after we've heard these colleagues, we will also have Ken Spears, who many of you know. He will represent the biotech industry to give us an overview of, I guess, a different perspective on innovative technologies. And we will finish this by asking Stéphane Rinfret to try to give us a little bit the perspective of clinicians. Once we will all done this, we will actually come together and we will open up the discussion to try to see where we can go from there and how we can improve the understanding of each other's perspectives. So without further delay, Michèle.
So thank you, Philippe, for this nice invitation. I'm very pleased to share with you the reflection we have at INES concerning the introduction or integration of innovations and mainly the managing of innovations. In the health system, I have no disclosures, but I have to tell you that I have a strong genetic predisposition to this French accent. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. I hope you will follow me. Just a few words about INES, which is l'Institut National de Santé Services Sociaux. Our mission is to promote clinical excellence and the efficient use of resources in the health and social services sector. The vision is to be the reference to inform decisions and practices, and we are sharing and relying on a set of values that are listed there. Our mandates, actually it's embedded in a law, la loi de l'INES, is to assess the clinical advantages, appropriateness, and costs of technologies, medications, interventions used in healthcare and social services. We issue recommendations concerning their adoption and coverage by the public plan, and we develop guides to clinical practice in order to ensure their optimal use in the Quebec healthcare network. The health technology landscape is changing. It is true for cardiology as well. I think we witnessed that this morning. And the traditional distinctions between technologies become less clear with time. Drugs containing nanotechnologies to target tumors or clots. Cell therapy, what is that? Is it a drug on a regulatory point of view? Is it a transplant? Is it a service? How do we tackle that? Those technologies are often interdependent. The precision medicine is a good example of that. Companion tests with drugs to improve the value. These new technologies, though, do not come without challenges for policymakers. The technology categories converge in ways that alter the delivery of healthcare. They challenge regulatory systems, which traditionally address a single type of technology at a time. New designs need to be tested for evidence development, in addition to the traditional RCT. maybe I went a little too fast. There's an increasing amount of money that is spent in healthcare systems year after year. We know that. Interestingly, the cost per year of life gained is increasing tremendously. We are far from the golden years of the 70s, and now it's more and more expensive. Can these promising technologies generate real value in the healthcare system? First of all, we have to share a definition of value. What is that? At INES, we adopted the definition proposed by Porter, which is measured by the outcomes achieved. So we've been in the classical triple E of HTA. Everybody is aware of that. Does it work in clinical trials? Does it work in clinical practice? Does it contribute to more efficient use of resources? Now we migrate towards the triple aim that was proposed by the Institute of Healthcare Improvement. Does it improve health? Does it improve the experience of care for the patients? At what costs? With in mind the important perspective of the equitable access, affordability, and sustainability of the system. It's a rather simple equation at the end. It needs to be measured throughout the continuum of care, but I strongly believe it is extremely complex. So the challenge is to distinguish between technologies that are effective and deliver high value. A good example of that might be a very cheap one, aspirin. Very effective, cheap, deliver high value. The other example, which is not affordable for many countries, is the Hep C treatments. Extremely effective, deliver high value, provides cure for the patients with hepatitis C, but it's not affordable for many, many, many countries. The other point is to be able to tackle the technologies that are effective in some indications, but prone to expansion of indications and use in a population where the utility diminishes. An example of that is imaging, radiology. And we want to identify that as well those where the benefit is weak or non-existent, imposing a clinical risk or harm to the patients. It is even greater, this complexity for non-pharmaceutical approaches, because there's a wide range of products for various purposes. The life cycle is usually short. We have those incremental innovations that complicate our work. A lot of variability in the quantity and quality of the evidence. No formal or systematic HTA process. It depends on users' skills, learning curve, and it's highly dependent on the organizational setting. Whereas there are challenges, there's opportunities. The classic HTA model is often caught in a too early, too late syndrome. There's a perception of delayed patient access to promising and effective innovative technologies. Our ambition at INES is to contribute to a rapid, safe integration of those promising, high added value technologies in a responsible, rational, ethical way. We proposed last year a model of iterative evaluation throughout the life cycle of technologies, and I will go step by step through it with you. It was recently recognized by the Ministry of Health and Economy, and we've been founded to develop this methodology. So it's not anymore a concept, it will be reality soon at INES. We strongly believe that we need to be closer to the ecosystem of the research during the R&D phase of development of new technologies, to provoke an early dialogue between stakeholders, to assess the potential value, the promise, and the plausibility of technologies for patients, clinicians, and healthcare system, and to inform, which is more important, about the evaluation criteria that would support decision-making when technologies are more mature. We believe that in some situations for high volume, disruptive, high impact, high cost technologies, we should systematize an evaluation process before the implementation of certain technologies to be able to tackle the uncertainty and propose some strategies to manage better the uncertainty. Instead of the flat yes or no recommendation, we could propose evaluation in the real context of care, conditional integration, managed entry agreements, not to stop the introduction of innovation, but to make sure that it is introduced in a safe and responsible way. In some situations, it might be limited in a few hospitals or settings to make sure that we develop contextualized evidence together, capture the implementation challenge, learn from that, and then be more comfortable to implement more widely. And finally, when it is implemented, I think there's a place for some techno-vigilance, it's a new word, using the real-world evidence, making sure that the promise is fully at the rendezvous and the optimal use of the technology is there. And we have a perfect setup that way for a learning healthcare system. I must say that Laurie Lambert, which is in the room with me today, is a pioneer of this approach of the learning healthcare system, blending the evidence from the literature together with the field evaluation and the real-world data, doing some retroaction feedback to the clinicians and the heart teams on the field. And only that is so important to improve the results by itself, improving quality, and proposing quality standards using the Donabedian's models, because we all know that it's not only the clinicians that are doing the work, you need a structure behind you and processes that needs to be fulfilled. And then the importance of the knowledge translation and the implementation support. Without those steps, no change can happen at a fast rate to improve quality. We believe that it's a safe way to introduce innovations, making sure that we do those kind of iterative measurements, retroaction, feedbacks, adjusting the quality standards with the evolution of the evidence. So at INES, within the cardiovascular unit, we've done that with you, with many of you in the room, as collaborators of heart teams teams, to be able to improve the quality with those kind of technologies, VAD, TAVIs, etc. The concluding remarks are that the evaluation, according to us at INES, of the added value of a technology must be dynamic, iterative, along the life cycle of the innovation. The earlier we start with the developers, the better it might be. It's a proposition. To achieve this, 3 elements are essential. Stakeholders' involvements should put patients maybe in first, but clinicians and patients together as a team, government, industry, academia. The dynamic measurement of health outcomes and costs, and the strategies to manage the uncertainty, which is the key. Those decisions need to be re-evaluated as the technologies evolve. So thank you for your attention.